Okay, artists, today we are going to create a background for a paper weaving. So right now we have a piece of paper that is white, and on the back of that paper we need to write our name and our class code. When you have your name and your class code on the back, I want you to flip it over so that the front is blank. We need to paint our background, and our background needs to look like grass. So each table has some trays, and the tray has a wet sponge. I want you to leave that sponge on your tray, and the tray also has some green and yellow tempera paint. Now I'm going to show you how to use the sponge and your paint to fill your paper up. We have a messy mat. The messy mat is to keep our tables from getting too dirty. So when you paint, I don't want you to get any paint in this part of the brush. We want to keep our paint on the bristles. So I'm going to dip my paintbrush into some green, and I'm just going to start adding some green. I want to completely fill this paper with green and yellow paint. So I'm going to dip it into the green. Now before I change colors, I want to use my sponge, and I want to wipe my brush on that sponge a little bit, so that way when I pick up the yellow, I don't get too much green in the yellow. So I'm going to add some green and yellow together on my paper. You can wipe my brush off a little bit on my brush or my sponge in between. And I want you to keep going with green and yellow paint. And I want you to fill your whole paper up with greens and yellows. So I'm going to pause and catch up. Now you can see that I have taken my time to fill up my whole paper with green and yellow paint. And I did a really good job of cleaning my brush off on the sponge each time I tried to get new colors. And you'll see that my yellow is still yellow and my green is still green because I took good care of wiping my brush off on the sponge in between. Now some of the bristles of my brush fell off on my paper, and that's okay. Those can stay there. When my paint is dry, they will come off easily. So now this needs to dry, so this needs to go on the drying rack. Your next step is to find the handout in your table folder that has 4 snakes on it. And it says color and add patterns to your snakes. The very first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put your name down here because you want to make sure that you know whose paper is whose. And then I want you to use your markers, and I want you to add some patterns to your snakes, and I want you to color them in so that you can't see any white left. So let's see, if I add, I kind of like this pattern that looks like less than signs. If I add that pattern to my snake, aiming for my best, to keep my pattern inside of my snake. And then I'm going to take a minute and I'm going to color my snake in so that there's no white showing. You can see that I aimed for my best. I filled in my snake with a pattern, and I tried really hard to leave no white spaces. I want you to do that with each of your snakes, and I want you to make nice, bright, bold, colorful snakes. I'm going to pause the video and do that to the rest of mine. So when you're done coloring, you should have 4 snakes with 4 different patterns and nice, bright, bold colors. Now, I've done something to your papers for you. I took your painted paper that we've done, I folded it in half one time, and then I folded the top down about 1 inch, and I drew 1, 2, 3 lines. I want you to find that middle line, and right here where this fold is, that fold needs to stay there because this is called our stop line. When we are cutting with our scissors, when we get close to that stop line, I'm going to yell stop because I want you to stop right there. We don't want to go past this stop line. So while this is folded down, I want you to take your scissors and I want you to find your middle line. I want you to aim for your best to cut right along that green line, and we're getting close. Stop! We don't want to go any further than that line. And now my paper is cut in half. Now I need to find the line to the right of the middle. I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to aim for my best to cut right on that green line. I'm getting close. Stop! Don't go any further past that fold line. Now I have 1, 2, and 1 big one. So now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to aim for my best to cut right along that line. Stop! I don't want to go past that fold. If we've done this correctly, we should have 1, 2, 3, 4 strips of green. When you open up your green paper, it's going to look a little bit silly because there's some cuts in it, but I want you to set that aside. And I want you to find your handout with your snakes on it. And I want you to carefully cut out each of your snakes. Aim for your best to stay right on that line so that your snakes don't lose any of their patterns or color. Aim for your best, and you should have 4 snakes cut out when you're done. Now that I have carefully cut out each of my 4 snakes, I want to pick one. Now, I want you to set the other ones aside, and I want you to listen carefully. We're going to say something together. We're going to do a pattern, and my pattern is over, under, over, under. Can you say that with me? Over, under, under. So boys and girls, I'm going to take my snake, and I'm going to start over here on the right side, and my snake is going to go over this blade of grass, and it's going to go under the second one. So over, under. What's the next one? Over. And the last one, under. And I want you to push that snake up so that his head is sticking out from the back. Now, the next snake that we do is going to start different. This snake started over. So this snake is going to start under. So under, over. What's the next one? Under. And what's the last one? Over. So now I have 2 snakes in my grass. Under, over, under, over. Now, I have 2 more snakes to weave. Here's my 3rd snake. This one started under, so this one has to start over. So over, under, over, under. And I'm going to pull that snake out just a little bit so you can see his head peeking through. So I have 1 snake left. My last snake started over, so this snake needs to start under. So here we go. Under, over. Oh, my other snake tail got stuck. And then under and over. So now I have 4 snakes weaving through my grass that I made. And boys and girls, I'm going to help you keep those snakes in place. But we have just put 4 snakes weaving through the grass.